Hello. Hello, everybody. It would help if I have my microphone by me. Would it? Would it not? Would that help? I think so. Hello to everybody in the chat. We're going to have I'm really looking forward to talking to Liz Ferris. She is about to join us. We're going to talk about her experience. It's so deep. There's so many levels there. If you've not been here to the channel before, I'm Natalie. This is Scientology Life After a Cult, where I talk a lot about the things that people have people buzzing on the internet about Scientology, and also talk about my 35 years in Scientology, also in the Sea organization, and most importantly, how I left with 3 generations of my family. We made it. We got out. We got out. We made like a banana and we split. That's my dad joke of the day, and I'm sorry. All right. Very, very excited. I'm going to bring Liz in here. Welcome, Liz Ferris.
Well, I was going to say welcome to you first, but I guess it's, hello, hi, and hello, everyone that is in the audience. And I love your intro, by the way. And the dad joke was good. It made me giggle.
Yeah, the hip hip hooray was actually my Tony's idea when I was doing my intro. I didn't want to put music because they're so picky, YouTube, on the copywriting. And so he's like, why don't you put in the hip hip hooray? Because I find the more that I make fun of things that we did in Scientology in ways, the more it seems less like it becomes more of an experience that I had instead of just complete and utter trauma. So, I know you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, just a skosh, like a wee little bit.
You just got to find some of those things that you can find entertainment and humor in. For those of you who don't know Liz Ferris, she has a YouTube channel here. Make sure you follow her, Liz Ferris, right there. Pokemon and Cults with Liz. You know, I used to be a big Pokemon fan when it first came out.
I'm pretty sure I could get you back into it.
Maybe. I actually, I got into it with my son. So early on, and my son's now 25. So back in the day we were doing that. So I think that's kind of cool. All right. Pokemon aside. Now we're going to talk about a few things today. I want to share with the audience how you hear about Scientology being homophobic, but what you don't hear a lot about is what that actually means to people, especially in the Sea organization, and not just in the Sea organization, staff members, and even public Scientologists. It's just the worst in the Sea organization. And that tends to be, I think, how it is with most things in Scientology that are abusive. That's the worst of it. And we're going to talk about Scientology's stance on homosexuality, what they tell people, what the actual truth is, what what her experience was, and the lengths that Scientology went to prevent her from having a relationship with her own father because they told her for 20 years that he was dead.
Yep.
I feel like that is your story in a nutshell.
It pretty much is. I mean, it's kind of like that thing, your life in 60 seconds, and you're just, yeah, that was actually my life. Like, yeah.
Yeah. So let's kind of go back, and if you have questions in the chat, if you could type question in all caps and put your question, I will keep an eye on those and star those, and we will take them up. Liz, tell me, when you were born, were your parents already in the Sea organization?
They were staff. So they had already been in for years. They were staff. And then while being staff, I don't know how it happened first, but I know there was a big fight that my parents had. And then my dad was like, well, I'm joining the Sea Org. And she's like, well, I want to join the Sea Org. But they wanted to join not together.
They didn't want to join together?
Correct. They wanted, basically, supposedly they were splitting up as they joined the Sea Org. It turned into this big, huge thing. And then, turns out they weren't even married at all. And it only took me to be 40 years old to find out that my parents had a Scientology wedding and not a regular,
not a legal
wedding. That's not a legal wedding at all. And my mom's been going by the same last name for 43 years, going on 44. And yeah.
Wow. It's crazy what we find out about our families in Scientology, out of Scientology. But I see this a lot in Scientology. When we leave, we find out more of the truth because there's so many hidden things. It's just part of the culture in Scientology. So how old were you when your parents went into the Sea organization?
I want to say I was 1 when my dad went in, and I was 1.5 when my mom went in.
And your mom was at the Advanced Organization of Los Angeles.
She actually started off at, now I just forgot the name of it. By when you enter from the security side,
Yeah.
the secret
Pack-based crew?
area,
Income?
huh? Income.
Pack-based crew? Income. Okay, so
Income.
the
She
computer
started
side.
as she started as Income, and
Okay.
then from Income, she was actually supposed to go to CMOI because that's who she signed her billion-year contract with.
Sure. And that's the Commodore's Messenger Organization International. For anyone that doesn't know, they're very high up in the organization, and their job is to be messengers of LRH. So they deliver his orders, which people in the Sea organization are just executing what L. Ron Hubbard already said to do, or at least that's the idea.
Yeah.
And so when you're talking to them, you're supposed to treat them as if you're speaking to L. Ron Hubbard himself, which I think always made them a huge pain in the ass because they were all mostly 12.
Yeah. I'd be looking at one. I'm like 17, 16, 17. And all of a sudden I'm like, you look like you're 9.
Yeah, you look like you're 9. And you're arguing with me about
and
this.
you're screaming at me right now, and I'm looking down to you.
Mm-hmm. And it's kind of cute.
Or look at you, little thing.
Exactly. Or as our friend Aaron would say, that's adorable.
Yes.
Now, tell me this. When did you know in the Sea organization, when you were there, because you grew up in the Sea organization, when did you know or suspect that you were a lesbian?
I didn't actually start suspecting that I fully was until I was like, I think I was 15.
Mm-hmm.
Like I primarily because I'd never had a conversation with someone. Like I found women attractive. I didn't find men attractive, but I always thought that that's normal. Like everybody can find other people attractive.
Sure.
Like, but then it wasn't until I started having boyfriends and girlfriends in high school and hiding it from my mother because men weren't allowed to stay the night, but women were.
Ah. And by that time when you were 15, had you studied enough Scientology to understand what Scientology's stance was when it came to the topic of homosexuality?
Yeah. But I'd also grown up. So I knew that in Scientology, it was completely against every single cardinal rule, like RPFable. Like I knew all of this. But my mom had told me that you can be gay in Scientology if you're not a practicing gay.
Mm.
So as horrible as this is going to sound, when I had a girlfriend, I wasn't a practicing Scientologist. And then when her and I broke up, I just had to write up my overts and withholds, and I was back to being a practicing Scientologist.
Was this when you were a teenager as well?
Yeah.
How did you have a girlfriend in the Sea organization?
I didn't have a girlfriend in the Sea organization. So my mom and I left. Well, my mom sent me away in 1989. And in 1989, I went to live with my grandmother. And then my mom came and joined me in 1990. I was out until I was 16. Well, technically going on 17, but I was 16. And then I went back there. I personally went back and signed my billion-year contract.
And then you joined as a Sea organization member yourself.
Yep.
This has been...
So the gay qual-thet question killed me. I had to think of everything under the sun, moon, and stars. Like, have you ever had a gay experience? No. And then yeah.
So let's back it up a bit. When you were, what were you doing where you were asked questions about your sexuality? Is this when you were going into this organization as a teenager?
Yeah.
And you remember, tell me again, what was the question?
It was, have you ever had a homosexual experience?
And what did you say?
God, no.
Yeah. And had you?
And I absolutely had. And you know what? The first thing I started doing in that situation was when she did the whole, that right there, what is that right there? I'd be like, Well, I remember this one time I thought the girl next to me was really pretty and we were getting ready for swim practice. And I just started going over every single
Yeah.
thing I could possibly think of. And she's like, congratulations, your needle is floating.
Mm. Yep.
Next question. And I'm like, how the fuck did that just happen?
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know,
Because you're so brought up to believe that the e-meter
that
knows
can read
all.
everything. And
And
I
the
thought I
e-meter
was
will
caught
know.
for sure.
Yeah, that's pretty good that you avoided that. That you find out from many people who leave Scientology is a common tactic in kind of tricking the e-meter, and it turns out really all of it was BS anyway, so it kind of didn't matter. Knowing what we know now, it would be so easy to do. But for those who don't know, in Scientology, an e-meter, it's a device that's used where you hold onto these cans and there's a needle on the dial, and Scientologists are trained to interpret what the needle movements mean on the dial and use it as a guide to help people locate certain memories or things or when they're being interrogated. So you'll often hear Scientologists, it's supposed to be this spiritual tool, but when it comes to interrogations, it's used more like a lie detector, and you're treated and spoken to very, very differently in those situations. So you're a teenager, you're going into the Sea organization. You know by then where L. Ron Hubbard stands on homosexuality, and for
So
anyone
I
that
was
does
just
not.
giving up being a practicing gay.
So you were just thinking, I'm just not going to do it, and I'll be fine.
Yeah. Not taking into consideration I'm going to be surrounded by hundreds of beautiful women and go, class A's?
Hmm.
Yeah. Like this is where, and I'm not trying to sound crude to everybody, and I apologize if I do. This is where it's very good to be a gay female and not a gay male, because they get the swing and we get the.
Mm. Yeah, you're right. It wouldn't be as obvious. So, at what point when you're in the Sea organization does it become an issue?
For me, my boss thought I was once I cut my hair off. Like it was, I think it was, I want to say it was 98 or 99. Yeah, I think I was 18 or 19. Either which way, I was a kid. I was a kid, and it was so hot that summer that it felt miserable. And I remember I'd had this short haircut before,
Hmm.
similar to what my mom had in the picture that I showed you,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
like
So
that
really short
duck
hair.
cut, but
Yeah.
it's a feminine duck cut. So I literally had when we went in to get haircuts for the gala, had them cut off all my hair.
Mm. Which was not unusual, I feel, especially in that time. So it's interesting to me that your senior at the time would equate that to being a lesbian.
Yeah,
It
she
was
instantly, when I got that cut, she was just like, "You like men, right?" And I'm
wow.
like, "Yeah, I really like." And it was the MLO at the time. It was my friend. It was my friend from Africa. I can't remember his name for the life of me, but I was like, "Yeah, I really like him." And I'm just like, "Oh, where did that fucking come from? You got to write up your OWs. Like, what the hell is going on?"
Yeah.
And then it, I just, it just turned scary. So I avoided the topic and started wearing a lot more makeup, you know.
Yeah, I'm just trying to change the narrative. So Scientology has an official stance on this, and anyone who's read Dianetics, Science for Survival, the Handbook for Pre-Clears, in multiple places, there is no questioning that L. Ron Hubbard outright condemns homosexuality and considers that behavior to be deviant, coming from people who are criminals, who can't be trusted. It's that was your understanding too growing up,
Yeah.
right? Because everything in Scientology is around that. And when I was in the Sea organization, I saw multiple people who were gay or engaged in a homosexual activity, as it would get noted on the reports, and they were punished for it. They were sent to do manual labor. They were sent to the Rehabilitation Project Force, which is the Sea Organization's gulag. I
Or
would get
also known
people,
as prison.
like prison, in order to Scientology counsel the gay away until they repented or changed their mind. And what your mom told you about, as long as you're not a practicing gay, I heard that too in this organization. I remember one kid, he got in trouble and he came to work with me in the dining room. And that's something that he said. And he was trying really hard to not be practicing. homosexuality. And even then it just broke my heart because I'm like, I don't get what the big deal is. Even then, that's something in my Scientology career that I didn't it wasn't something that resonated with me as being true, what L. Ron Hubbard was saying. It was more like, well, I guess I don't have an experience with a lot of people who are gay. So, what do I know? So maybe it is,
Yeah.
maybe it isn't kind of thing. And then after I left and got to know more people from different diverse communities, for me, my personal truth about it was, you know what, at the end of the day, if somebody can't be trusted, it's because of who they are, not who they sleep with or who they love. Some people are just a-holes. That's just how it is.
Yeah. And that's hard for me because that truth even rang true up until I woke up. Every time I would break up with a girlfriend, I still considered myself a Scientologist because I believed in the tech, not the cans, because I was like, man, I was able to fake those fuckers.
Yeah.
Oh,
So you
sorry.
didn't believe in the e-meter anymore,
Yeah, I
but you
didn't
believed in
believe
the
in the e-meter.
technology.
I believed in the technology, the student hat, M1, like the full kit and caboodle. Like it works. You just have to apply it correctly.
Exactly. You just got to know what you're doing there.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take a peek at, I shared this before on a live, but I want you to hear it and I want to get your response on this. This was, I forget if it was last year or the year before, but it was recent. This is the Church of Scientology trying to infiltrate the Ventura interfaith community. They had this whole group and they had to go in and apply. And this group asked them quite a few questions. And at the end of this, they asked about their stance on, like, would they perform a same-sex marriage? So we're going to play this here. Listen up.
Kind of, can you give me the shape of those kinds of moral codes if they exist and a sample of some of them?
Well, sure. I think there's a basic moral code. It was the last book that Mr. Hubbard wrote in his life. It's called The Way to Happiness. And it consists of 21 precepts.
And just sidebar, the woman who's speaking is disconnected from her parents who were Scientologists and is currently keeping her children, their grandchildren from them because they exercised their freedom to leave a religion. And this is who's out promoting Scientology, trying to get Scientology accepted into these interfaith communities while she herself is not connected to her family because of Scientology.
Of how to live a happy life, basically. And that's probably the closest and most concise moral code that's followed. And it contains things, for example, to be faithful. That's pretty straightforward. To honor your parents, to love and help children, to support a government run for the people. What else? It's all things you've probably heard before. Treat others the way you would like to be treated. So basically, the morals of Scientology rest on the ethics of the individual members, and the ethics is a personal thing. Ethics are a personal decision on how one's deciding to run one's life. And there you get into that pivotal point of it.
What's funny to me and interesting about this is the question they had asked her was, tell us about some of, the morals and the ethics. The gist was, how do you interfere in your parishioners' lives when it comes to morality, which leads to a gentleman coming up asking this question.
Is this for the greatest good, for the greatest number of dynamics, or is it only going to serve one or me or something like this? And that on that basis, one makes decisions, do it or don't do it. So that's the only code that specifically deals with.
Look how nervous she's getting because she knows, oh, you do what's the greatest good for the greatest number. And in Scientology, all the areas of your life are referred to as dynamics, which, number one, this is a Ventura interfaith community. They don't know about the dynamics or what that is. So the way she explained it, they didn't understand. And later on, someone asked her about it.
Actual moral decisions. But each person applies morals through their own ethical behavior.
Look at
or
the guy
lack
yawning.
thereof. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, or I guess so. Would it be accurate to say there aren't or for example, is there a code regarding how often you should pray, or how often you need to do some form of worship,
No.
or
Yeah.
how you should, anything like that, I guess? Or, no?
No, it's
Okay.
not structured that way. No.
Okay, all right, yeah.
I'll add to Arash's question. Are there specific codes for sexuality? Sexuality limited to marriage? Are there codes addressing homosexuality?
No, there's nothing addressing that. As far as sexual conduct, again, I go back to the way to happiness, which is one of the precepts is don't be promiscuous. So, sex is a powerful thing that can ruin lives when treated without care. And that's really what's promoted. There's nothing specifically saying you may not have sex with this person or that person, or you must with this person. It's conduct yourself in such a way that dynamic doesn't collapse on you through inappropriate and destructive behavior.
But it's okay to cut off your parents and keep the grandchildren from them.
Because it can be destructive.
Will the church conduct weddings between two people of the same gender?
I would imagine so. I've never been asked to so far, but yeah. There's nothing that says they can't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Liz, what say
She
you?
she going to double HE hockey stick. That's a trying.
Yeah.
That's a lie.
Mm-hmm.
Like every word out of her mouth was like, oh, here's and then this shit.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that woman just said, obviously, as you know, is a lie.
Yeah.
Would they ever perform same-sex marriages? The day that sex is allowed in public. No.
In your time in the Sea organization or your time in Scientology, which was what, 30, 35 years, right?
40
years in Scientology. Were you ever aware of a same-sex marriage happening, being performed?
No, just minor adult.
Mm-hmm.
Just minor adult. A whole lot of 15-year-olds marrying 30-year-olds. There was no, because the way that people, okay, first of all, the common thing, if a person even seemed gay, like had a feminine voice, what if they're gay? Like, oh, could you imagine what they do? And it would be like the most horrible put down that you've ever heard. And see, that's what gay people do. That's what the gay does. And then they twist things and stab you in the back. And no.
Yeah, exactly.
They made it sound like, everyone was going to set you on fire if a gay person walked into a Scientology building.
Mm-hmm. So when you hear that, when you hear her saying, and again, this was just in the last couple of years when they were trying to infiltrate the Ventura interfaith community, which, as I understand it, they did for a little while. How does that hit? Because here's the thing that, and you tell me too what you think about this. Growing up in Scientology, my time in the Sea organization, even afterwards, when I was a public person and even doing some PR for Scientology, I was aware of what they tell you is to give an acceptable truth or a sure story. It's basically lying, but it wasn't as blatant as this, where there's Scientologists outright denying. It's one thing to deny that David Miscavige beats his staff. It's one thing to deny even the coerced abortions, right? Which so many of us have spoken out about. But to deny that or say or put forward that Scientology would perform a same-sex marriage when book after book, it's so clear what L. Ron Hubbard says, I would say is one of the biggest lies that I think they're telling at this point. What do you think about that?
The fact that she could hold a straight face and say one whopper of a lie, it's kind of like the idea, when someone lies, you don't remember the lie. So would she be able to spew the same garbage if she was asked today?
Mm-hmm.
No, because that was a lie. And so for me, the fact that she kept a straight face was such a bold lie.
Yeah.
Even though she's disconnected her kids from her,
Yeah.
from
her
their grandparents. Like,
Mhm.
the next thing she was going to say, what? There is no such thing as disconnection.
Yeah.
No such thing as it either. If you've ever heard that, Whopper. No,
Yeah.
it would have been, yeah.
I think that Tommy Davis said that. I mean, a few of them have said that there's no such thing as disconnection. When you were in the Sea organization, so you're a teenager, things are going along. Tell me about what it was like, what was happening, what it looked like when you were starting to struggle and realize that what your sexuality was and what you felt in your heart about who you were versus who you were trying to be.
So I was a huge people pleaser. I also, I had respect for my boss for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think she was too bad. And I knew if I just kept my stats up, then they would leave me alone. And so my job was to keep my stats as high as possible. Because I knew if someone found out that was it for me.
Yeah.
Like they would force me to be disconnected. It'd be like worse than the Scarlet Letter. I was going to the RPF, and then, I'd already been put on deck so many times for like breathing.
Yeah. And being put on the decks, for people who don't know, is basically where you're sent to do manual labor, to repent for whatever it is you did or thought about.
Yeah. Well, you're then working the steps of liability and begging the group to let you back in because, yeah. And I even got put on the same lower condition because, every time I would try to get my mom to come back to the Sea Org because she really wanted my mom as the senior has DC network.
Mm-hmm.
I would try and I would fail. And every time I failed, I was told that I was not tone 40 and you are now in liability. So I got put like 5 times on decks because I couldn't get my mom to rejoin the Sea Org.
Yeah. So you get punished for that. As you're going through as a teenager, and, of course, that's when we all have those hormones. And there's just so much going on and you just want to reach out and touch someone.
Mm-hmm.
At any point, did you tell me about what it looked like when you're entering that stage of life, as anyone naturally would be? And did you have a relationship or experience while you were in the Sea Org with another woman?
Yes, I did. Not with someone in the Sea Org. I had met her at the Mayfair. And
the grocery store?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that was directly across the street from CC.
Yeah.
And so.
And that's the Celebrity Center.
Yes. Sorry, everybody. Gotta love those acronyms.
Yeah.
But
so you met her at the grocery store and you're like, hey.
No, she said it to me. She said it to me like, hey, I want to know about this. And so we started talking about Scientology.
Yeah.
And then she's like, she said something about like what started it was do you like me? And I was a kid. Like I'd met up with her intentionally. Like we went there on a Friday and I met her and then she'd be like, all right, see you here Saturday this time. So then I'd go Saturday at that time. And yeah,
you guys would hang out.
We'd hang out behind Mayfair for 10 to 15 minutes.
Oh,
and then all of a sudden it turned into giant makeout sessions. And then before I knew it, I realized that I was being a practicing gay and I got scared.
What happened then?
I never talked to her again. Never met up with her ever again.
You just cut it off. Did Scientology find out at all?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, they could have been, but not that I was aware of. The senior has DC network used to send me to Mayfair all the time to go get her a Diet Coke or a Diet Pepsi, and then it worked out perfectly because that gave me a reason to go to the Mayfair on certain days.
Did the girl work there?
I think she did.
Okay, because otherwise she seems like she's hanging out a lot at a grocery store.
No, I think if I remember right, she worked there and then she got fired, but still kept coming back when we were hanging out.
Okay. So then you're going along in the Sea organization, and what is that like for you mentally? What kind of a space does that put you in as time goes on? That you you're on one hand know what you like, know what your preferences are, and probably are figuring it out at that point, but you have to hide it because it's such a thing in Scientology where they're so against it, and you could end up on the rehabilitation project force, which is like the gulag. What kind of work were you doing then? Can you kind of tell me what that was like?
Well, at that time when all of that was happening, I was the EPFIC.
So you were
And
handling
then,
new recruits coming in and who were doing the Sea organization boot camp.
yeah,
Okay.
not quite proud of that moment because every bit of anger for everything I had, I took out on them.
Mm,
Like, if I got put in lower conditions, then, they were going to be in lower conditions. They weren't going to get additional things like, no, you don't get additional relax time. We're going to start muster early and we're going to do push-ups. It would be,
yeah.
trying to be a good Sea Org member so that my stats were up.
Yeah.
Not proud of it.
Yeah. And
Now I feel horrible.
And that's something in the Sea organization where I've seen that very common, that you're treated a certain way and you believe that, well, that's how Sea Org members should behave. That's how I need to behave and survive. Because what is it L. Ron Hubbard says, where only the fittest survive?
Yep.
Something about even the
And
type.
like recruits like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was a big one.
There's so much pressure there. So you move forward a little bit and you're working at the Celebrity Center and start struggling with some mental health issues. And you had mentioned even an attempt to try and unalive yourself. Are you okay talking about that?
Yeah. So basically what had happened was I had just gotten off of Dex and I was working in the Celebrity Center. They were thinking about putting me back on as the EPFIC, but I was going to go to Free Winds first. And I was going to learn how to be a good EPFIC by watching and working that way. And so I was like, okay, no problem. That started getting planned. And then the general's daughter happened when we all got forced to go to the theater and watch the general's daughter.
That was the movie with John Travolta, right?
John Travolta.
Okay. So I remember the movie with John Travolta. So you all had to go watch the movie to help boost the statistics of the movie.
Yeah. And I had been SA'd before I rejoined the Sea Org. I had been SA'd and had a child.
I am so sorry.
Said child up for adoption. And
wait, this is before you went into the Sea organization?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. I'm so sorry.
So
was it
because that was the catalyst that pushed me back. That never happened when I was a kid. I can take some punches, but I was never this. I went in very unhealthy, if that makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense. So not only as the result of the SA happening at all, you find yourself pregnant with a child that you did have and give birth to and you gave up for adoption.
Mm-hmm.
I applaud you for that.
Well, I didn't for very long. I did
Yeah.
not for very long.
That's not an easy thing to do by any means at all.
No, but we can't see a therapist. And especially if they tell you that you need a lot of therapy, that this is going to hurt more than you realize.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't. I'm a Scientologist. Scientologist.
You don't get any help, any real emotional support for the trauma of the SA, that having the child, carrying a child for 9 months and then giving that child up so that child can have a better life.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, you go right into the Sea organization.
Yeah.
How did that go?
Not very well. Some things, like I was lied to a lot because I was supposed to go to Golden Era because I had pipes. That was the biggest thing, is that I could sing. And the whole point was that my dad and I were going to work together and I was going to be able to sing and everything was going to be good. Well, I got duped. I got lied to. The person that I had done the EPF for was the Manor Hotel. No, I was not going to Golden Era. No, I was not going to anything along those lines. I was going to become a maid. And I was like, okay.
That's a common lie. Even when my daughter was recruited for the Sea organization, she was in marching band and loved her saxophone. And they told her that, oh, you could go to Golden Era Productions and play your saxophone. And that's how you can help save the planet. It is a very common lie that recruiters for the Sea organization will use on young people is they find out what they have a passion for and convince them they can do that in the Sea organization. And the truth is, in the Sea organization, it's very clear. You learn this on the Estates Project Force, which is boot camp for Sea Org members. And that is that you will go anywhere you're asked to. Well, told to. Nobody asked.
Yeah, told. I was like, wait a minute. I've never was asked, hey, please go over there. No, it was,
Yeah.
get your ass over there.
Yeah. Isn't it part of the code of a Sea Org member that you will do any job, anytime, anywhere, anytime somebody says so?
Even scrubbing a toilet is helping clear the planet.
Yeah. So you're in the Sea organization, you're at Celebrity Center through all of this. What led up to the roof incident?
So what led up to it is nightmares came. They wouldn't let me leave from the general's daughter. I had to sit there and I was like, you don't seem to understand. Like I'm going to have a panic attack. Like I feel like I can't breathe. And it was all the symptoms that people had explained to me back in high school.
Yeah. And for anyone who's not tracking, who might not have seen the movie, The General's Daughter with John Travolta, it has some very disturbing and graphic essay scenes in it. So now this is making more sense to me. You're sitting there, all the Sea Org members are forced to go see this movie because it's John Travolta. This was common. And having gone through what you went through, this would be incredibly triggering to have to sit through. So there you are having to do this. And then what?
And the nightmares came back about my own essay. And so I thought it was happening every single night. So every time I closed my eyes, I got put in lower conditions when I explained to the ethics officer what my nightmares were about.
So you told, and in Scientology, the ethics officer is the person in charge of the ethics of the organization and the staff. So you go to this person because you think, well, they're also there to help me, right? And you let them know what you're struggling with. And did they know why? Did they know about the assault and the baby?
No. Well, it was in my folder, but it didn't come up during the sec check. No.
Okay.
And nor did I talk about it with anybody.
All right. So then what happens?
So I'm put in lower conditions on decks. They're like, we don't know what to do with you, blah, blah, blah. That lasts. And then finally I got to a point where they started,
take your time.
The security officer started telling me, we're going to dig holes today, and I'm like, oh, okay, like not really understanding, like I just need help. But okay, let's dig holes. And then I look at him and I'm like, how big of a hole do you want me to dig? Like, you're giving me no information.
Yeah.
And he's like, your body should fit in it.
That you should go,
your body should be able to fit in it.
To dig a hole that your body should fit in. And this is all prompted because you went to someone you thought who could help you.
The ethics officer at the time was also my friend, or at least I thought she was my friend.
Wow.
Like I would sit in her room and she would paint and we would talk about like all kinds of things. And I thought she was honestly my friend.
And this is the help. This was the solution they felt that would work rather than actually dealing with what the issue is, because there's no acknowledgement of mental illness or trauma in Scientology. They're just called engrams, and you're only supposed to talk about it when you're just auditing it out. And outside of that, it should have no effect on you. That's where we really get into the cult mentality of compartmentalizing things, of putting a box around a traumatic incident and just putting it off to the side and trying to keep it out of your mind. And so here you are having nightmares about your assault and what happened. And you get told by your church, the people that you actually went to for help because of the nightmares, to go dig a hole that your body can fit in.
Mm-hmm. And at that point, it was, I had said, you know what? I want to go home. I want to go home. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, I'm just joking. No, I was like, no, dude, I want to go home. Like, I'm going home. I'm going home to my mom. Like, I'm going home. Like, deuces.
Yeah.
And
And
so
how
I
old are
just
you
kept
at this
saying it.
point?
I was 20.
Okay.
So then I got put in massive amounts of sec checks for the next, like, I think it was like 3 weeks or 4 weeks, something like that. I'm really sorry for the dogs barking. I'm really sorry.
No worries.
So after the sec check from hell, I then get put across the street in the building before, one of the rooms that had like was freshly renovated. It was looking beautiful. And sorry,
your
this is a
time.
lot harder than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Just take your
So,
time. Take your time.
The nightmares just continue getting worse. And while I'm in this room, one of my friends, or at least who I thought was my friend, Jamie from HCO, was assigned to watch me all night.
Mhm.
And,
Did they know that you were having thoughts of self-harm?
No, because at that point I wasn't. Like, I just wanted the nightmares to stop.
Mhm.
Even
they were
that whole
watching you.
situation, they were watching me because I said I want to go home.
So they were basically there to make sure that you, in Scientology, it's called blowing or to blow. So they were making sure that you don't blow. And when someone in the C organization says they want to leave, one of the first things they do is assign somebody to watch them 24/7 to make sure they don't just take off.
Yep. And it doesn't matter male or female. I just got lucky and Jamie would watch me, I guess, at night. And then the security guard watched me all day.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got to dig more ditches. And that time I actually did do ditches, because I was starting to get scared. Like, do they know I'm gay? Did they know like everything? Like, they caught me on everything? Like, why won't they let me just leave? Like, I don't understand. Like, what's the big deal? Just let me go.
Mm-hmm.
I won't tell anything of what I know. I won't tell anything about the celebrities I've, bullshit I've witnessed and things like that. I just let me go.
Yeah.
Let me go home. But I got 6 weeks of barely any food, a whole lot of manual labor. And then my last week, James Richardson was like, "Oh, we need to go get like, you want a good burger? We're going to go get a good burger." And I'm like, "Yeah, I would love a burger. I'm starving."
And who
then
was
he
James
takes
Richardson at that time?
he's still at the same position or same post, I think, the head of security at Celebrity Center.
Hmm.
So we got in his.
He's not the guy with the beard that we see outside of the L. Ron Hubbard Way, right? That security guard?
No, he's
Okay.
he's only at CC.
Okay, so he's only at the Celebrity Center. So he tells you, "Hey, let's go get a burger."
Yeah. And so I'm like, this has to be a joke. This is going to be a cruel joke. Like, I'm going to watch him eat a burger.
Mhm.
Like that. And that's all I could think of is I'm like, I'm about to watch him eat a burger. And this was a whole fucking lie, like everything else,
Mhm.
because they don't bring you food when you're at that point.
Mhm.
You're not allowed to go into the dining hall at all. It was literally just, hey, I stopped by. This is all they had left at breakfast. And it'd be like a piece of toast. I'm like,
Mm.
Lunch, you were lucky if you got it, they remembered or anything. Dinner, sometimes they would bring it, but most of the time it'd be forgotten.
So what did happen with the burger?
Yeah, he actually did let me have a burger.
Mm-hmm.
It was probably the best burger I'd ever had from Fat Burger. It tasted like it was like made of gold and just explodes in your mouth with flavor. And I probably killed it in like 4 bites.
Yeah. Because you weren't getting enough food. You're doing manual labor and not getting even the basic necessities of food.
Correct. And so I'm still having the nightmares. I eat the food and he's like, "It's time to go back." And I'm like, okay, not thinking anything of it. I go back, and he's like, "So why did the general's daughter mess you up?" Like, why? And he starts talking about how good the movie was, that it proved that the person that, and he used the actual word, but we'll just say SA, the SA they got their justice. Like there's, why is this not? And then, yeah, that night, the nightmares were so bad that I didn't think I could survive another night. And
How did
so
you
then
respond to that?
I'm like, that was a horrible movie. That was a horrible movie for someone to have to watch. Like, I'm glad John Travolta thought that was an appropriate movie that his children could watch.
Yeah. So he's basically making you wrong for not liking the movie with no
Correct.
understanding at all of why that was triggering for you.
And so that night I went to bed. I knew the nightmares were going to be there. But I went to bed and the nightmares started and I just said, fuck this shit. I flipped my bed, you know, because I was living on a cot, obviously. I flipped my bed over. I started screaming and then finally just bolted out of the door, ran up the stairs, ran up another set of stairs, and then hit the roof exit. And then looked for the corner and I went darting toward it. And security just happened to catch me.
Before you jumped off the roof.
Yeah.
So do you think that's because they were keeping an eye on you, the whole 24/7 thing?
Yeah, I knew he was behind me and I didn't know how far he was behind me because he was chasing me out the room. And
your intention
was to just jump the fuck off the roof.
But security grabbed you before you could do that.
And I begged him to just let me do it.
What did he say?
No, what do you want to talk about? What do you want to talk about? Like, what's hurting? Like, what do you want to talk about? You know, don't you know that you have some stuff that you have to get done tomorrow? Like, you haven't completed that drawer. Because they were having me varnish furniture.
So here's somebody who's taking action to harm herself. And he somehow thinks that looking forward to painting a drawer is enough to stop you from doing it. This just speaks to how they're not equipped. They're ill-equipped to handle true trauma and things that are happening and have happened to people. So what happens as a result of that incident?
That later that next day, James Richardson tells me that there was an emergency meeting about me, an emergency gathering. And he's like, well, you know, we're taking you to your mom's. I'm like, what? Like, I've been begging for this and okay. And at the time I'm thinking, great. Yes, I'm free. Don't care that I haven't eaten. Don't care if any of that. I'm just free.
Yeah.
And then he's like, no, we're driving you. You're not flying anywhere. We're going to tell your mom exactly what's going on. And so what did they tell my mom after that horrible 8-hour drive? Because of course they had to drive the speed limit. They told my mom that I was grossly out ethics and don't support other Scientologists.
It's mind-blowing, especially considering what started you getting into these ethics handlings and actions. We're just sharing that you were having nightmares, which were becoming overwhelming. And instead of helping you, they punished you for it, made it worse, threatened you with literally digging your own grave. It's L. Ron Hubbard said, there's a policy letter called Keeping Scientology Working, and it is at the start of every major course in Scientology. Scientologists read it. Not only do they read it, they have to do what's called star rating it, which means someone will ask you the definitions of all kinds of words in it. And if you get it wrong, you have to clear those words, go back and read it again. And it's several pages long, and you have to show that you understand it. And as part of it, he says in there, we rather have you dead than incapable. This is what the leader of Scientology has been saying to its members at the beginning of every major course in Scientology. We rather have you dead than incapable. So what happens when a Scientologist and a Sea organization member is struggling, having legitimate mental health struggles, and they know why? Someone in their New Year folders and knew why. But somehow the solution is, well, let's go have her dig a ditch. Like that somehow is going to make it all go away. And
Right.
it's only when you take the desperate measures of trying to fly off a roof which I guess we're thankful that he was there, even though handled completely incorrectly. Only at that point are you allowed to leave and you're turned over to your mother. But
Who's a diehard Scientologist and
Mhm.
believes that LRH knows the way and LRH is our only survivor. And yeah,
So at this
I
point,
was terrified.
you're 20, 21 years old. You're with your mom. You're out of the Sea organization. At that point, were you able to seek any type of
No,
mental health help?
no.
So what happened from there?
My mom gave me the whole thing that we're going to get all the auditing. And once I get all the auditing, we're going to work out this nightmare. Because I sat her down and I told her exactly what I had just went through.
Did your mom know about the earlier sexual assault
Yes.
and the baby?
Yep.
So she knew about that. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, she knew. But
And then you told her what happened when you were in the Sea organization
when I was in the
as
Sea
well.
Org, like every nook, cranny, horrible detail. And she's like, it didn't happen like that. It didn't, it's probably in your head. It was not like that. It was not like that. And now when I try to have conversations with her, 20 years later, I'm like, no,
Yeah.
it happened. Look, it's the same fucking sorry. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It's all right.
It's the same story. Like it
Mhm.
hasn't changed. And she's like, no, I know it hasn't changed. I didn't think that really did happen.
Does she
And she's
accept
like,
it now?
let's get a lawyer. Let's sue
Mm.
them. And I'm like, for what happened 20 years ago that you knew about the whole time? Like, you want us to sue, but you didn't want me to do shit back then. You thought I made it up,
Mhm.
and no. That woman will believe until her last breath in this world, until she decides to drop the body.
Mhm. It's hard, and we see this a lot, not just in Scientology, but in families and groups outside of Scientology, especially when there's SA. It's parents, individuals don't want to accept it. Not sometimes, it's really difficult to hear these things. Even now, I know it's difficult for many people because it's so shocking. But the thing is, that uncomfortableness that comes with it, that's a good thing because you should be uncomfortable about it. This topic and what we're talking about should make you incredibly uncomfortable. And it's only through that uncomfortableness that we're ever going to be able to change it and do something about it. And 20 more years, then you're still in Scientology. So you're there with your mom, you're 20 years old. You're no longer in the Sea organization. Did you have a freeloader debt?
Yes, I did. And I was making very minimal payments.
To pay it off to get in good standing with Scientology.
Yeah, with what I could afford, because originally it was okay. I just pay $10 a month until we're done. And then I'm like, whenever I have extra money, because when I first started working, yes, I left and went to McDonald's. So no, I could not pay off a $70,000 debt.
Yeah.
With my McDonald's pay. So basically paid the minimum until one day I was like, well, I haven't gotten a collection letter. Maybe I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
And then like 2 months later, I get another collection letter and I'm like, no, I'm not even halfway there.
And this is a letter from Scientology, not from not from a collection agency, because a lot of people will ask this, the validity of these freeloader debts, and they're not valid.
They're not. And that's
they're
what
not.
sucks. Like I've paid half of mine.
Yeah. Wow. You paid half of it.
I paid half of mine.
So that's $35,000.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you pay off half your freeloader debt. You're going along. You're still what would you call it in terms of where you were at with Scientology during that time?
I was still reading the books on a regular basis, just like my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And then because that was my practicing Scientologist. And then when I was practicing gay, I would just not do anything. And then I rinsed, recycled, repeated. And so that way I was, until I met the love of my life. And then she had me watch the Leah Remini show.
Mm-hmm. So while you were out at that time, you weren't looking at anything on the internet or, reading about anything about the truth about Scientology?
No, when I went onto the internet, it was specifically for school. And
Mhm.
if I saw something, because there was a couple of English books that we had to read that were required for school that actually specifically talked about LRH.
Mm.
And I told my mom about it. And my mom's like, oh, you need to drop the class. Just ignore that part.
So spoke about L. Ron Hubbard in a negative way.
Yeah.
Got it.
And so when I would ask my mom about it, and she'd be like, people like to just talk crap about the amazing work he's done.
Yeah. So tell me about then. So you stay in Scientology for another 20 years, and then you meet your partner today, who is Kim, right?
Carrie.
Carrie.
Keri.
Okay. So you meet Carrie, you fall in love. Carrie has you watch the Leah Remini series. So you're watching all of this. Did you consume it all at one time, or what
Yes.
did that look like?
I binged it like it was crack cocaine. It literally was like nonstop every waking second. Because the first episode I watched, I wanted to be like, they didn't have my story. Like, they didn't know what I had to deal with.
Yeah.
And that was me judging myself, everybody. Like,
Mhm.
my whole childhood, my defense has been as long as it's only happening to me. The abuse that happened when we were kids, as long as it's only happening to me. Like, I will take a punch for anyone as long as it's happening to me and not anybody else.
Mhm.
And so the more I watched, the more it was like, oh my God, there's so many people that are just like me that they just took the punch.
Because you're
Like,
not allowed to talk about it. So
No,
you
you're
don't know
not.
that your peers are experiencing things that are similar, because we were never allowed to talk about it. We
No,
always
and I
thought it was
thought
us.
everything was to be quiet. Don't disturb your parents' post.
Oh, yeah.
Don't talk negatively about Scientology. You know, I justified it until I was blue in the face. And then watching that first show, I was like, oh my God, that's just like me. I need to watch the next one.
Yeah.
And I need to watch the next one. And so I
Mhm.
sat there and Carrie'd be like, okay, you just, you just got to stop. Yeah, I'll definitely, I'll save a girl's life from a cucaracha.
Yeah, you find out, you realize, and that's why I think it's so important to amplify these stories on social media and in other ways, because there are people. I mean, honestly, what we're talking about today, whether you were in Scientology or not, it's applicable just because of the topic and the trauma that happened. And there are effects from that. And in Scientology, they're amplified because of the lack of true help when it comes to mental illness and trauma and all of that. So you're watching these and you realize, like, okay, I'm not the only one, because that is part of the trap. That's part of the lie in Scientology. And in the Sea Organization, they tell us that they make us believe that it's only happening to us. So it really, really resonates with me when you say, as long as you're the one taking the punch, we think we're the only ones who we must just be out ethics or something, because these things keep happening to us. And now you're being exposed to Scientology aftermath, and you're seeing that you're not, and that all these other things happen. So what did it look like when you finally left Scientology?
I had a mental health breakdown. I
Mhm.
went cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. No, I really did. I started searching for the answer in the bottom of a bottle.
Mhm.
Took my casual drinking of tequila to the answers in the bottom of the bottle.
Yeah, which is not uncommon. It's often, you have all these tools. You grow up in Scientology and you're programmed with a certain amount of tools, and you think that that's what I need to get through life. And then you realize that Scientology is a bunch of BS, and you drop it, but there's nothing else there yet to replace those tools. And that sounds like that was the case for you. There was nothing there, so you turned to alcohol. And how'd you come out of that?
Well, I didn't come out of it very well at first. I basically kept looking for the answer in the bottom of the bottle and ended up wanting to kill myself again. But this time, because I just thought that my only stable datum was now gone, and if that's gone, then how many other things do I believe? Like I believed at that time that I was going to grow old with Carrie, and I was like, what if that's not real either? and so it just started spiraling and spiraling and spiraling. And then suddenly it was, I just wanted to die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It just kept getting worse. And then Carrie and I made an agreement. I tried to do a 72-hour hold on myself, and that turned out to be a big joke because, of course, the psychiatrist doesn't even talk to you.
Mm.
Like, they released me after like 48 hours, and it was like, okay, like I didn't even talk to anybody. I still feel the fucking same. Cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I go tell Carrie, and I'm like, look, this is what happened. And she's like, okay, we're going to go in tomorrow morning and we're going to get you in. And I was like, okay, thank you. Because I couldn't, and I needed to go in. The thoughts of death were really bad. And so I went in, and it saved my life. I was
Mhm.
given tools to, like, actual therapeutic tools, books to read that will help me understand the brain and stop treating it like Scientology.
Yeah.
Found out that psychiatrists aren't evil. They don't want to take over the world, and
Did you find it as an ex-Scientologist, especially somebody who grew up in Scientology in the Sea organization, when you first met your first psychiatrist or your first counselor, did you, at that point, were you already like, no, I'm totally cool with this? Or did you have any reserved apprehension about it just
a
because of?
lot of apprehension.
Mhm.
Because I was like, well, that therapist seemed like she was like, I met a school therapist first. The first thing I ever met was a school therapist. It was, a junior high school therapist. And, she was really nice. Like, she'd say, good morning, Liz. Have a great day. Good
Mhm.
morning. And there'd be times that I'd be like, good morning to you too, bitch. Shut up. But it was what it was. And so I was like, how could a therapist be evil if they're so nice? Like,
Yeah.
that makes
trying to help
absolutely no
you.
sense.
Yeah. So then you start in legitimate therapy and you start getting help, and you've broken free from Scientology. So what is the time frame we're talking about from today? How long ago was that?
Technically 3 years ago
Mhm.
total.
So you're 3 years into being post Scientology and getting help, and you're still with your woman. You guys are she's right there
Mm-hmm.
by your side, which is
Yep.
beautiful. So what does life look like now?
Life looks like I talk to my psychiatrist once to sometimes twice a week. I talk to my therapist once to twice a week. I am doing fantastic. I do not have any wish to part this planet or anything along those lines. I want to be here to educate people. Like, you can't find the answer in the bottom of a bottle. You can't find it from your next hit of a drug.
Mhm.
It's basically, I'm here to be the person that I needed the whole time.
Yeah, I love that. And I don't doubt that you're going to be that person that a lot of people might need. That's why, head over to Liz's YouTube channel. The mods will share a link in there. I'll share her page as well. Let's just look at this again. Get over there and subscribe, because she's got a lot to say. You have a lot to say. And it's one thing I know that I think about when it comes to this movement of exposing Scientology, right? Whether you're an ex-Scientologist or you're someone who's never been in, but you're passionate about this because you see the correlations between Scientology as a cult and other controlling groups. I always feel like everybody has their own cult or eventually will. It's just they look different. And most of the time, you won't know it's a cult. Otherwise, why would you stay? Not many people say, there's somebody out there who does, but that's why I say not everyone. Not many people seek out to go join a cult. And
No.
when you're born into or raised into a cult like Scientology, like we were, it's that programming into the hard drive of that child mind happens so much earlier and during those formative years where you should be developing certain, not just skills, but boundaries and all of that. So we're growing up without that. And then add to it a situation where, in your case, where being punished for who you are, and at the same time having Scientology lie about that they would perform a same-sex marriage, and we know they won't. And now,
No.
it's on video, which I need to remember to link the video in my description because I don't think I did. So if Tony's here, you are. Remind me, babe, and then I'll put it in there. It's just it's so blatant. Yet you have your story, and the sad thing is there are so many more. And what I love about this community is there are people from so many different backgrounds helping each other. And you do not need to agree on everything by any means, because the thing that we can agree on is what happened to you, Liz, shouldn't happen to anyone,
No, shouldn't happen to anyone.
anybody in Scientology, out of Scientology, gay, straight, or otherwise. It shouldn't happen to anybody. And that's why we want to talk about it and we want to raise awareness about it. And I just applaud you being here. Let's answer a couple questions. Jessica asks, do ex-Scientologists tend to stay homophobic? That's a great question.
That's I think that one's up to the person themselves. I obviously am not homophobic in any way. I know that a few of us that have exited are no longer homophobic. I don't hate myself or my kind, as Scientology would put it.
Yeah.
But, at that same time, I think some of the older generation, it depends on the generation.
Exactly. And sometimes I think that has more to do with even being of a certain age versus even just Scientology. It's like they add to each other, but there's people in all kinds of different denominations who are homophobic. There's also people at the same time. I know many people of different Christian faiths who will say there is no room in this world for hate against anybody because of who they choose to love. And they may not 100% be on board with the physicalness of it all, but they will agree that hate doesn't have a place in it. You can disagree on it. You can disagree on the fact that I like to go camping. And if you don't like to go camping, that's fine. We disagree. Does it mean we can't work together to bring down Scientology? No, it does not.
No, because I'm not Carrie says it all the time. I'm not a camper. I'm a
glamper. Yes.
I knew it was something along those lines because I'm not digging a hole to go to the bathroom, anybody. I'm not.
No, that's not happening.
Not happening. Won't sleep on a cot either.
Yeah. Maria Martins, thank you so much for the super chat. Just because I like pretty colors. I love that. Look at there. Lara, fully support the gay. No fox given to technology. Oh, Scientology's homophobic laws.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, girl. Love that. Love that. I'm going to try and get to some more questions here. This is an interesting one from Tan Louie. If you could ask David Miscavige one question, what would you ask?
For me personally, I would ask, why did you lie about my dad being dead?
Mm-hmm. Tell us about that. Where did that come from?
So I was told, my dad and I, even after I left the Sea Org, my dad and I continued talking. Okay. I came back to LA when I was 21 just to see him, picked him up at the HGB Hubbard Guarantee Building. Sorry, I almost acronymed again.
That's where some of the protests are happening. It's where they go to look for the mothership, the big buses.
Yep.
It's the management building where the L1 Harvard Life exhibition is.
Yep.
And it's where they're hiding some of their front groups.
True. Very true.
Mm-hmm.
So we pick them up. We have a great day. We go to pizza. We go to the mall. We go hang out. And then drop him off. Now this is after I've already told him, 21. So after I told him that I'm not rejoining the Sea Org. So he was cool with it. Everything was good. We had a really decent day until he did piss me off. You know, he told me he had to eat every hour or he will lose weight. I'm a chunky monkey. I was a little jealous. Why couldn't you pass that gene on to me, father?
Did he say why? Did he have a parasite? I mean,
No, that's just the boys. Every boy in the ferris side has a ridiculous metabolism that will literally, like, they have to eat all the time or they get super skinny.
How does he do that in the Sea Organization?
I have no idea. Like,
All
he's
right.
probably got food hidden somewhere.
Yeah. So you leave the Sea Org and you're going out, you're hanging out with your dad and everything seems fine. And he is still a Sea Org member.
Yeah, he's the Sea Org member. And again, having a good time. I drop him off. He said, I'll talk to you soon. We continue talking. And then at 24 years old, I decided to come out as gay. Like, I'm going to tell my dad. I'm going to make the announcement, and I picked two people I was going to say it to. My cousin Felicia, because she hates me, and then my dad, because he loves me. So I went to tell my dad. Again, in that moment, I was not thinking of Scientology. I was thinking of my dad.
Yeah.
You know, I called him. I told him I was gay. He said, okay, but wait, I thought there was only one gay person per family and my sister was gay first. So I laughed and I was just like, oh, yeah. He's like, you know, I love you. I got to go to work though. You know, I'll talk to you in 3 months. And I was like, yeah, cool. Talk to you in 3 months. Because it's usually between the 1 to 3 months is your time frame when being able to actually talk to the person, or at least has been my experience.
Sure.
So everything seems right. Everything's okay. I call because it's been over 3 months, and the receptionist picks up and says that Bob Ferris is dead.
And how long was this after you saw your dad?
I saw him when I was 21 years old. I talked to him on the phone 3 months prior in 2004.
And he's at Golden Era Productions at this point.
Yeah, well, he's been at Golden Era Productions since 1985.
So then you call, and then you're like, they just told you that he's dead.
So I immediately told my mom. My mom was like, okay. I started freaking out in my head because I'm like, man, my dad just died. Like, why am I not crying? You know, and I couldn't quite understand what again was going on.
Yeah.
Like, why couldn't I cry?
Was there a service? Did you ask if there was a service or anything like that?
No, I never called Golden Era ever again. Once I talked to my mom, and my mom told me that he's probably buried on the on Golden Era base under a tree. That was good enough for me, because why would a Scientologist lie to me, and why would my mom lie to me? And
did your mom know? Did your mom know the truth about your dad, that he was alive?
She says she didn't, but right now I don't know.
So how long was it from the time you found out or were told and believed that your dad was dead while he was a Sea Org member at Golden Era Productions until you found out the truth?
Found out the truth almost 20 years later. I get a phone call, and it had a Los Angeles number and I was like, man, I recognize that number. That looks so familiar. Pick it up. Yeah, you know, have you, what'd she say? Are you going to make a payment on the Bob Ferris's freeloader debt after I'd introduced myself?
Yeah.
And I'm like, freeloader debt? He's dead. And the person hangs up. And so I immediately go tell my partner what's going on. Like, this doesn't make any sense. What's going on? And then I message Claire Headley, And I say, hey, is the freeloader policy changed since, my dad or since I was in the Sea Org? Like, I just need to know, did the freeloader debt change? She emails me back and she goes, no, why? And I was like, my name is Elizabeth Ferris. I'm Robert Ferris's daughter, also known as Bob. I was told that he had passed away, and now I'm being called about a freeloader debt. And she's like, I'm gonna call you. Is it okay if I call you? And I was like, okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking like, oh, I'm gonna get some answers, like, because right now I'm so confused. Like, either he's dead or he's not dead. Sorry, everybody. So now I find out that he's can't possibly have been dead in 2004 because he was alive in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
And
So at this point, you're realizing that he is probably
it was a lie, and he's been alive this whole time. And I haven't tried to get him out. I haven't tried to contact him. I haven't tried to reach out to him. Like, there's so many things that I missed. Like 20 years and 20 years of what he's missed, almost 20 years of what he's missed from me.
Do you know why? Did you ever find out why you got that call about the freeloader debt? Because that's a little sus, because he's still in the Sea Organization even now.
Yeah, Claire and I have talked about it. She explained to me what it was at Golden Era. It's a blow drill.
So does that mean maybe at one point that he did try to blow? He tried to leave?
That's what Claire Headley and Mark Headley were explaining, and Jackson were explaining that he had tried to blow. But at the time he was, 72 years old. So yeah, 70, in his 70s, because I didn't know what year he was born, but I knew his birthday was 11/23.
Yeah. So you get this phone call that basically was to feel out whether or not he was with you, because they were trying to locate him. So at one point, your dad tried to get away.
Yeah.
At least once that you know of for sure.
Yeah. Once that I know it for sure. And then like later on, my mom told me that she received a call like 10 years ago, and then a call a couple days earlier, because I waited to find out from Claire that it was fake.
Mm-hmm.
And then when my mom and I talked about it, she's like, yeah, it's their new recruitment. I'm like, no, it's not. That's a blow drill.
Yeah.
And she's
So
like, well, that's none of my business. What your father chooses to do is his problem.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay.
Have you heard from your dad at all, or had any communication with him since you found out he's still alive?
I've honestly, I have not had any communication with him. I literally thought he was dead. And I thought he was buried at Gold Base.
Yeah.
Like, winner, chicken dinner. I'm 43 years old, and I really thought that my dad was buried at Gold Base.
And you went out there, right? Didn't you go out there not that long ago?
Mm-hmm. Once I found out that he was alive, well, first I did 2 welfare checks. The first one was, I was told by security. No, I did the one main one. I was told by security that they had seen him earlier in the day, so he's fine. Doesn't make face-to-face contact, and this is Riverside Police, or Sheriff. I think it's Riverside Sheriff. And so then the next one goes during the day, and he's like, look, they're not going to let me in. There's nothing that we can do. My best bet is to come down here and try to ask for my dad at the gate. Perfect. I will do that. I will be there this weekend. And so Carrie and I started immediately mustering up everything that we could do to get down there. And we made it down there, and I stood there peacefully. I walked up to the main gate, and I basically stated, my name is Elizabeth Ferris. Robert Ferris is my father. I would really like to see my father. And then they stopped talking immediately through the box. The shade went down, and so we stood there for what felt like 9 to 10 hours, but really was only 3 hours. And then, called the police, and they basically, in as many words as they could, it sounded like an old man, you know, is the police recording. And I know it's on there, and it's out there. If you guys have had a chance to read it, it's on Degraded Daughters or listen to it. It's on there. The phone call was a total joke.
What do you mean by the phone call? Who was the phone call with?
A police officer. I went from being a daughter to they offered to have me trespassed. They offered to help him file a restraining order for him. And all the way to I was an illegitimate daughter that he has no awareness of or just found out about. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that because this is often the case, or this happens in Scientology, in this organization, the person who's in there themselves does not know that somebody's there trying to get them out? That happened with my daughter when she was in LA and I had to go fly out there to get her. She didn't know that I was even on the base. She didn't know that I was trying to get her and get to her. Do you think that in this situation, it's possible that your dad, they told you he was dead, that they could have told him something equally true that he didn't
Yeah.
know?
That's what I've started realizing now, because that's how it feels. Like, what if he was told that I was dead? So he's, but then then the cop slipped in the very same call and goes, but he's been corresponding with an Elizabeth. And I'm like, I'm the only fucking Elizabeth. I have pictures of him and I in my wallet. Like, I had my 2 favorite pictures of my dad and I with me on that trip.
So that's something that the police tried to say. So maybe
Refused.
somebody in this organization said that, well, he's been in touch with Elizabeth, which is
Yeah.
you. So how's that possible if
That I'm an illegitimate daughter all of a sudden?
Yeah, exactly. Because it's very possible that's not even coming from him, that because they have him held somewhere and they don't want him to have contact, that he's being, treated like a mushroom, right? Kept in the dark, being fed a
Yep.
bunch of shit that he doesn't even know what's happening. How old is he today?
He is 73. He just turned 73 on 11/23, and I had a little live birthday party specific for that day.
Yeah, that's great. That's fantastic. Do you still hope to be able to get him out or see him again? What are your feelings today?
My feelings are like, because I've now come out and explained the amount of abuse that I've had, the fact that I'm covered in scars and I've broken almost every bone in my body. I want to know if he knew that was happening to me. But other than that, I would love to have a relationship with my father. I'd love to just be able to get a hug, to be completely honest. Like, I'm not asking for much. If he doesn't want to be a dad, that's okay. But just give me one hug.
Yeah.
And then you can walk your separate way. It's totally fine.
Do you have any idea about what we can do, what anyone could do to help get your dad out of there?
Well, right now we're pursuing a lot of the information in regards to like his elderly abuse. So we're trying to go that route.
Yeah.
I can't talk too much on it because
Sure.
for legal
Yeah, don't.
purposes.
Yeah.
But that's the route that we're going right now. And other than that, I'm going to go down on February 24th. The plan is hopefully get some protest or some explaining of what a Scientologist is at AO or in Pac Base, and then AOLA, or God dang it, Pac Base, and then Celebrity Center. And then once those 2 are done, I want to hit up Hemet again.
Just head up there and see why you're there.
Yeah.
I like that idea. I think that's.
And I know Nora has stated that she would do it. That is my overall goal. And if Nora can't do it or anybody else can't do it, we can't go to Hemet, then my wife and I will go on a day that we're the second day we're down there.
Yeah, and see what you can do.
Yeah.
Stevie's asking, are nightmares given to people by their thetans? How do Scientologists explain that? I don't recall Ever only thing
Um,
I ever heard in Scientology about nightmares was that you just need to take more B1. Wasn't
yeah,
it B1?
they doubled you up on your B1 and had you drink a shit ton. It felt like a gallon of CalMag.
Yeah, of calcium and magnesium. Jennifer asks, how does Scientology decide how much someone will pay for their freeloader bill? It all depends on what the courses are, because
What courses you've
yeah,
completed,
each
how
course
many
has a value.
uniforms,
Yeah,
how many beds
it's
you've slept on.
it's so ridiculous. Psych, it's Tara. What kind of thought-stopping techniques does Scientology teach their members? Well, we could be here all
Get your
day with
TRs
that
in.
one. Yeah. Yeah, there's too many to name, but if you hang around long enough around here, you will find out. I think in this situation, so much of it is the secrecy of it, of not questioning other people, not sharing what happened to you, staying silent. It creates this where you feel like you have to, what your silence is protecting the group because you still have such loyalty to this group that is not really a group. But we're bred to believe that our purpose is to protect and expand Scientology from
Mhm.
childhood. Did you feel that way, Liz?
Yeah. From the moment I was the earliest memory I can tell you, I was telling and screaming at people that I'm a Scientologist and it's so amazing. And, and even even after I left the Sea Org, I was still saying how Scientology tech is the way to go, that teaches you how to learn and you learn how to study. And I was still doing it constantly and, constantly routing people to the org to go do courses.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now I just look back and I'm like, man, I was hook, line, and sinkered. But
Mhm.
now I'm awake and it's been like the best 3 years ever. Has it been some rocky times? Yeah, there's been some emotional rocky times, but I'm seeing a therapist. I'm doing great. And I will continue seeing a therapist because my psychiatrist wants to write a book about me.
I think that's such an interesting idea. And so tell me a little bit like what's life like today?
Life like today is I have an amazing corporate job.
Mhm.
I absolutely love it. I've met the love of my life. I came into a house where she had 2 kids and I've never been happier. Um, we're getting closer and we're getting closer and closer to actually being able to see my dad.
Yeah.
Because you know what? When doors are closing, that's more people that are aware of the situation. If they don't have the guts to remain open, if they don't have the guts to, you know, listen or have a debate with us without getting physically violent,
Yeah.
you know, I'm sorry, just more eyes are happening and it's just getting closer and closer till I get to see my dad.
Yeah. Well, definitely, I know that you jump on and you do live and you share about it and you will update people. So you want to head over to Liz Ferris's YouTube channel and go ahead and subscribe so that you can be in the know on what happens next. Because like she said, and here it is there, you can see it. Liz Ferris looks just like that. Go find her,
Yep.
go subscribe.
That was made by one of the first people that actually joined, like became one of my, subscribers. I don't like calling them subscribers because I call everybody friends. So I didn't have any artwork. It was just like a plain, like not great, like game background. And
Mhm.
so she sent it for Nora and I because we had just started doing the Dyke-tastic duo.
Yeah, I love that.
And I kept that picture. I was like, wow, because at the time that was what my hair was.
Yeah, that's really cool. Sandykins has a question. When Laura last night had that fight with an elderly gentleman, was she giving him her best TRs? And why do you think she smiled after she yelled at him? I think that's a really good question for Laura, who's going to be up in a little bit, who I'm going to be chatting with. Lara. Gosh, I
Yeah,
cannot get it right.
Lara Croft.
Lara.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to have to say it a million times to get it straight, to get this straight, because
Just
that is a
call her
good question.
the queen of rock and roll.
The queen of rock and roll. I like that. So you're headed to LA in February.
Yep.
at the end of February. So people keep an eye out. And you'll be doing some live streaming while you're down there?
Yes, who's going down for in this group is Nora, Liz Gale, me, so 2 Liz's, and Alicia are going down. So we're going to go do what we need to do. We're going to join Lara FM. We're going to join Serge, his amazing husband, Michael.
Yes. Serge, I got to say, I am loving Serge and Michael together and seeing their channels and seeing them come together, but also the different perspective of it. I'm just loving it because I love in watching them. It's like you can see, I love seeing people, and I haven't met them yet in person, but you can see just this inner beauty. I mean, they're both beautiful. They're both beautiful on the outside too, but right. It comes through, and the passion. And Serge is incredibly passionate about what he believes in. And I absolutely love that about him and seeing that come through.
He's so magnificent with his words. And that boy can dance. He does some dance moves. And I'm sitting there like, oh, I broke that's my back. Like,
yeah, I'd break a hip. Yeah.
Like, honey, get me a walker. I tried to pretend I could dance like Serge. You know, like I'm going to throw out a hip or something. But yeah, no. And
yeah, it's really neat. It's neat to see. And I love that they're doing it together. And I know that Tony and I have enjoyed, I do the lives. He's been jumping in as a mod and been learning more and more as well. And it's such a neat thing to share with your partner, especially I think it's different circumstances when your partner has never been in Scientology, but they get it and they're still there.
My partner is never in Scientology. A lot of us actually have a better partner outside of Scientology that has no knowledge of Scientology.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like we are all going to be saved by the never ends.
Yep.
And the generations to come. So Liz, hang out for a minute. You guys follow Liz, because I want to know what happens when she goes to Los Angeles, and as things more to what you have to say coming up and what you share. And I know you do a lot with Oh No Nora as well. And I love her too. It's going to be so neat to follow and see what happens. I appreciate so much you sharing what happened. I think we all know that is not the easiest thing to do. And I hope that it helps bring more peace and healing and awareness, and knowing that there's somebody who's watched or will watch that might be in a similar situation, whether they're in Scientology or not, and can see this. My channel is called Scientology Life After a Cult. I do want to get more into what does it look like today for you? What happened when you left Scientology, and show that there is life after this. There is, and it can be a good life. It can be so much more than you ever thought it could be. So I appreciate you being here and sharing all of this. So thank you. Hold tight. Everybody else, get out there and have the most amazing cult-free day.